Hello, and welcome to the Industry 4.0 Club. I'd like to wish a good local time to everyone. Also referred to as the I4.0 Club, our main purpose is to engage the power of diverse worldwide talent to accelerate the global evolution to Industry 4.0. We do this by hosting respectful, thoughtful, and interdisciplinary conversations. Our aim is to create quality content on wide-ranging I4.0 topics to expand the reach of the community. This is Women in Manufacturing, our Monday conversation, with a focus on tech and manufacturing. In this space, we discuss the perspectives and challenges of women at work and at home. Our topic of discussion for today is titled Better Equipped, Advocating to Fill the Careers Gap. I'm Carol Mitchell-Lin, an Industry 4.0 Club co-founder, and for over 5 years, I've been creating content for I4.0 adoption in manufacturing. When I'm not supporting my fellow co-founders, I'm a content marketing specialist at Raven AI, where we help manufacturers engage operators to provide a meaningful human context to production on the shop floor. First, I'd like to introduce my co-host and fellow Industry 4.0 Club co-founder, Grace Donovan. Hi, Grace.
Thanks, Carol. Good morning, good afternoon. I actually heard a term this today that I thought you would like called good after morning. And I know we have folks tuning in where it is morning and where it is afternoon. So I thought that was a great term that we could adopt. As Carol mentioned, I am a fellow co-founder of the Industry 4.0 Club. And when I'm not here with my fabulous co-founders and our lovely guests, I work as a sales representative at Endonix. We're a Detroit-based startup helping manufacturers move past paper and connect the top floor to the shop floor and gaining a lot of efficiencies using digital technology. So very excited to be here today and really excited to speak with Kelley, our lovely guest.
Yes, thanks, Grace. We are pleased to have with us our guest, Kelley Evans. Kelley is the program coordinator at Hamilton YWCA Uplift Program in Hamilton, Ontario. Hi, Kelley.
Hi, Carol and Grace. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks. We really appreciate you taking, Grace. We appreciate you taking time to be with us from your busy schedule.
Yeah, I'm just going to put Kelley front and center here. There we go. Now, to kind of kick off the conversation, Kelley, our first question before we really dive in is, could you let us know a little bit about you and give us an idea of where you are today and the journey that brought you to YWCA Hamilton in your role currently?
Yes, for sure. Thank you, Grace. I'm really excited to be here today to speak about what I'm doing right now. In the past, I've been a career counselor for a long time, working with individuals in different locations, different communities, and I'd be somebody that you'd call a generalist, since my experience is broad across all career types. I spent more than the last decade working specifically in a post-secondary environment, which I really loved. And I came to the YWCA of Hamilton to coordinate pre-apprenticeship for women, something that kind of blends training education and women's careers. That was my first exposure to manufacturing. Well, that was a very good experience for me. And when the Uplift program was launched, it was such a great mix for me, a blend of community programming, post-secondary content, and helping women in their careers. The program's goals are to uplift their careers or to help them at advanced levels with YWCA of Hamilton. So really a great fit for me.
Absolutely. I know we'll pass it off to Carol here in just a second, but it's just, I recently completed, an additional training course, and I think it's so valuable for people, in the post-secondary space, as you're mentioning, to have additional and continuing education opportunities. I know that's been a big topic of conversation, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. But, as someone who's benefited from it, and I'm sure you as someone who is actively encouraging it, it's really important, especially as the economy and just industries around us really begin to transform. So just really fascinated by the work that Uplift is doing. And I know that we're going to get into that a little bit more. So I'll hand it over to Carol.
Thanks, Grace. Now, Kelley, you mentioned that there's an ecosystem involved with what you're doing with the YWCA. You're not doing it alone. You have supporters in multiple areas. Could you give us an idea of how that ecosystem is designed and how it's organized to help from all areas help with the program?
For sure. The vision really was to maximize the geographical location pretty much across Ontario to help women in high-tech fields where they're heavily male-dominated. There's a great gender imbalance at those roles that tend to be high-tech, high-paying, rather secure employment opportunities. So the Uplift program, like YWCA of Hamilton received the grant to roll the program out. So there are 6 YWCAs involved. And my home base, YWCA of Hamilton, we have 2 programs in-house. But my focus is specifically, my personal focus is specifically coordinating the advanced manufacturing program. So let me talk about the ecosystem, because the program has a vision. It's a fairly broad vision. So I like to describe the Uplift program as having 3 pillars of support. There's a skill development component delivered by a post-secondary training institution. One of the barriers for women too is, managing their career, their families, and paying for post-secondary career development isn't always easy to attain. So the grant covers all the training costs. And as you know, post-secondary can be quite costly. So the program is expensive to run, but it gives women an opportunity that many of them would never otherwise have. So there's the skill training component by post-secondary. Our training partner with the advanced manufacturing is McMaster University, MMRI specifically, delivers the skills training. And Brescia College University, I think I've got the name wrong, Brescia University College, they are Canada's only women's-only college, and they're affiliated with Western University. They deliver a leadership training. So they have a 3 micro-credential offering that they developed specifically for our program to help women become aware of their reactions in environments and where they're possibly a minority or there's a power imbalance, to help them equip and succeed at higher level career positions. And then that's the 2 pillars, both with the training partners. And then our in-house, we call them wraparound services. So we have a job developer full-time that supports the program. We have a mentorship component. We have a peer support component. And then there's obviously individual follow-up where we can make adaptations and support people if something creates a conflict for them or a challenge. Our goal is to help them be successful. So we always want to find any way we can to help them move forward. So that's what I call the 3-pillar system for success.
Thanks, Kelley. And I think it's important that we share this because if somebody has a similar idea who may have access to certain resources, if they can use this to kind of duplicate them or inspire to help other women in other geographical areas, I think it's important. So thanks so much for sharing that with us.
Yeah. I think one thing that I wanted to touch on too, again, this is, excuse me, was, could you give us an example of, potentially some women that have come through the program that you've seen succeed, and, what are some of the outcomes of this program? Because it sounds fantastic. And I know that you and I, between the 3 of us, we've discussed it, but I would love for the audience to hear some of the, warm and fuzzy stories that come out of this program, because it is making a real impact in a lot of women's lives.
Yes, Grace, for sure. I know when I was thinking of information that people would really like to hear about.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to pick out a few memories that I thought would drive home the value of the program. So, for instance, we had a participant who was a newcomer to Canada. Oftentimes, newcomers come with very high levels of education that they tend not to be able to maximize once they get here. So she did have a background in manufacturing, and she was unable to get a job in her field whatsoever. When she started the program, she was selling insurance. Mm-hmm. So through the program, I don't know, these people blossom in the program. She leveraged her own network, and mm-hmm. she landed a remote job as a product project manager for a manufacturing company, where she still is today.
That's really fantastic. And, it's certainly, as a newcomer anywhere, whether it's within the same country or internationally, building that network is really critical. And it sounds like she did a good job doing that, but I'm sure she had a lot of support from the program as well in navigating like what this looks like in a new environment, because networking in different cultures in different countries can be quite different depending on like what the degree of difference is from your home culture to your new culture, right? And so you mentioned that newcomers to Canada, like it helps them upskill with that example. So can you tell us a little bit more about the process and who you leverage for assistance?
Yes, for sure. Okay, sorry, let's see.
It's okay.
I want to just sort of dive in on, how we leverage things. Mm-hmm. So the process for people to come in, the program didn't target newcomers, but we did end up, it's a very attractive program for newcomers. So we do have quite a few of them. Oftentimes they'll come in having taken a survival job, such as the mm-hmm. first person that I spoke about. And so the process for intake is certainly it's a post-secondary level program. So we do have a screening that there is a match with their background, their skill level, their education level, and their language level. The intake process is done, like I carry it out and then I do a consultation with a manager before we issue an offer of acceptance. And one of the things I'm always checking for is to see, like, what is their current situation employment-wise? What are their goals for the future? Because if they're unemployed and there is some urgency for employment, this program may not be the best fit for them. This particular program is 9 months long. So mm-hmm. to get a job, that can't be the priority goal. It has to be something that they can work towards attaining the micro-credentials and then getting a better job. And so they should be coming in qualified to work in their respective field, but maybe they need some help with the job search process, the networking process. And that's where we start to leverage resources within the program, creating connections with mentors and companies mm-hmm. that would be in their target range, sourcing opportunities and helping those clients communicate their assets and initiate the job search process. So we think too that it's really great, pretty much for any professional to get a prestigious university onto their resume and more recent education. So I wanted to just speak to a particular person, someone who was unemployed at the start of the program. She's in a cohort too. So she did gain a job very quickly on as a quality assurance specialist in food processing. So when I talked about people blossoming in the program, sometimes they just need that confidence. Mm-hmm. And this is really, we didn't set out to make people confident. We set out with very concrete, specific goals, ways that would benefit women in their career. But the confidence was a game changer. So again, I just want to speak to the employment stats because our first cohort started, 84% of them started already employed. And 3 months into the program, remembering it's a 9-month process, 92% were employed. That cohort 1 actually finished with only 1 person unemployed at the end of the program. So cohort 2 started in March of 2022, and 56% were employed when they started. And by the end of June, 69% of them were employed. And I really think that having the confidence of being in the program, because they'll accumulate their micro-credentials as they go through. But the fact that they have all this support, they're gaining so much confidence. I'm seeing it's generating immediate outcomes when they're in the program.
Yeah, so it's like a very positive externality of something. And I think so much of it has to do, this is kind of maybe my take on it, is that it has to do with mindset. And, if you're potentially, pre-Uplift program, you might feel like you have the cards stacked against you. Like there's a lot that you might know that you want to achieve and have these goals, but then the question becomes, how do you achieve that? And while there's certainly a lot of ways, having a cohort of other women and mentors surrounding you, cheering you on and saying, yes, you can, I think is just really helps, as you mentioned, like bring out that confidence. And then it just seems like those barriers evaporate. And I think this is also, a recurring theme that we've been brought up after this was brought to us by one of our previous guests, is the importance of having a personal board of directors. And so whether that's like a temporary program where you have people giving you guidance and giving you advice and like boosting your confidence and saying, I see that you have all these skills, these are fantastic. It really does make a huge difference, I think, in people's outlook. And once you have that confidence, it's kind of unstoppable. And it's just really exciting to hear. So I think that's fantastic that you're seeing a lot of, positive confidence come out of this, especially considering that, if we look at a lot of the skills gap and the trend over the last couple of years, like women have been primarily affected by a lot of the job losses, kind of taken a big step backward economically. And so it's really, even more important that we have programs like this that are helping propel women, back to that starting point and then on forward. Now, before we carry forward, I just want to kind of double down on micro-credentials in case that anyone hasn't heard that term before. Are you equating micro-credentials to a specific skill? Is this a very specific course that people are taking through your partner universities? Would you tell us a little bit more about what a micro-credential involves?
Yes. So micro-credentials, they're supposed to be like a rapid, sort of rapid skills training that has a competency factor at the end of it. So we're in a really unique position with our training partner at McMaster in that they have a menu of programs. So they did start with a standard set of topics that would lead to the 3 micro-credentials that they provide. And but with their menu options, the program always came with electives. So to get a micro-credential, they have to do a certain amount of learning and then a project at the end to be successful. And there are 3 sets. So we're now able to customize the learning outcomes for each person to align more closely with their specialties or their scope of experience and their goals for the future. So again, the micro-credentials do consist of some standard learning based on the target micro-credential topic with a couple of electives and a project. So the students work independently, virtually through their material, and their successes are tracked. And when their qualification is completed, they're issued a micro-credential certificate. Oh, did I answer that question long enough? Adequately?
No, I think you did great, Kelley. And I think maybe this is where part of the confidence comes from that you were talking about before, where somebody is doing something that they took part in developing for their own credential, their own learning. At the same time, they're doing something that they know is current. And I think a lot of confidence and building your knowledge, knowing it's current knowledge, it's current in the schools and universities, it's current in the work field. It's a tremendous amount of confidence that comes from that, knowing that you're not behind, or maybe if you're out of the workforce for a little while, even a short time, you feel like you're behind the game. And I think that's where a lot of that comes from, where you don't feel that you're quite with it. And I think this credential, especially I think it's the Industry 4.0 credential that you have. Is that correct?
That is one of the micro-credential topics, is Industry 4.0. That truly was the topic that I was most excited about, because from everything I had learned about manufacturing, to me, that was at the center of advanced manufacturing in Canada, that industries need to get on board with Industry 4.0. That's the way of the future. And so I like to think we're making a small contribution to that.
Yes, and certainly. I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you, because of that particular credential geared specifically for women and reskilling. I thought that was really something important for us to share. So thanks for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think just to provide some additional context, and Kelley, please correct me if I'm maybe a little bit off base, but if we zoom out to and look at just women's participation in STEM, it's something that's consistently growing. But considering, by looking at a lot of what's happening in Industry 4.0, a lot of digital transformation, women tend to be in the minority with kind of the skill sets that are often needed. And so, it's not to say that there aren't any women. Of course there are, and there's a lot of really, smart individuals out there who are working in these career fields. But if we look at terms of representation and parity in the workforce, there's still a lot of ground that we need to gain, as women. And there's a lot of focus in education, starting at I think oftentimes we think, okay, we need to start really young and really early. But there is still a huge opportunity with people that already have transferable skills. And how do we just, help them to make that pivot to fill these gaps, right? So I think just kind of wanted to bring in a little bit of that kind of bigger picture context. And, I think it really highlights the importance and value that the program brings.
If I can just jump in there, Grace. Yeah. I didn't expand on some of the other topics. So there is another micro-credential that's focused specifically on programming and advanced manufacturing. So there's a lot of sort of science content in like in the micro-credential menu. There are some engineering specialties. There's a polymer engineering and a surface engineering micro-credential. So, when people are looking to elevate their careers, they do have to show sort of growth in the knowledge areas. So people are investing their time to learn things that can be contributed in their future career, and perhaps at a different role.
Excellent. Thank you. It's definitely great to know. So kind of going back to confidence, I think one of the common threads that we see kind of in the program and from your participants is this advocacy piece. And that's part of the title today, is advocating to fill a careers gap. So in what ways do you see advocating for women? How does that help them with their own psychological safety, mental health, and confidence and success overall? So we're getting back to that confidence piece.
Yes, well, it turns out I see that as part of the secret sauce of our success. So what we really preach is self-advocacy, sort of teaching people how to do it, how to speak up for themselves. Oftentimes they don't know what to say or who to approach. So we really work at that level. And the fact that we have a mentorship component, we're bringing in role models from different industry sectors who are in a leadership role, that they can kind of talk about their journey. And the nice thing is, I think these mentors, pretty much 100%, are always offering to connect after the fact. And I think that contributes greatly to the confidence factor, that somebody's actually offering to either have a chat, give some resume feedback, set up a coffee chat to talk about the career or the industry. And I think that not only gives people a boost on an individual level, it is just encouraging them to be more actively networking and building their contacts on their own. even in ways that they haven't before. Actually, I had thought of an example I wanted to talk about. One of our participants very recently surprised me. She said out of the blue, she had just made a lateral job change at the same role in a different industry. She moved from the civil engineering field to the pharmaceutical field. And she talked about her salary negotiation process. She said something she didn't think she could ever do. And to be completely honest, women do not do this easily. I think we can all acknowledge that. So she's a very soft-spoken, young lady. And so she said, when we talk about these concepts in the group setting with familiarity and practical tips, it empowered her. And so she took it upon herself to take those steps. These are the stories I love to get back.
That's excellent. It really resonates with a piece of advice that I got that I take into heart whenever, I think a salary negotiation comes up, because you're right. I think we do tend to have, we as women tend to have a harder time with it, or it's harder to, feel justified in what we're asking for. However, I think if we flip the script and say, I'm going to be advocating for Carol, and women are champions of other women, and so I try and bring that own mentality to my own negotiations. Like when that happens, of what would I negotiate for someone else? Because I'm going to be fighting for the maximum value. I see their potential current and future value, and so how do we kind of take that energy that we bring to other folks in our community and kind of bring that back to ourselves? That was one of the best pieces of advice that I think I got that helped me reframe, okay, I'm doing this for other people. How can I do this for myself? And I think, like having spaces like you mentioned, where that's being casually discussed and like building up that confidence is really important. And it's just these little frameworking or like paradigm shifts that these tricks that we can pick up in these situations that can really make a big difference. And as you meant, like having advocates, whether that's a mentor in a program or someone who's going to be advocating for you behind closed doors.
All right, I got muted. I had a technical malfunction.
That's okay, Grace.
But it just kind of really highlights that importance of, having people that are going to advocate you, men and women, peers and mentors. So it's really, really valuable to have programs like this that kind of introduce you to people that are going to kind of give you that boost when you really need it.
I'd like to just sort of round out the topic one more dimension. And that is, I have to talk about our job developer. So, two heads are better than one. And she, as the job developer, like reaching out to make those industry contacts, that's really her priority. So she can, leverage those contacts for things like information interviews, things that women generally tend to be really shy to ask about. So we're having the conversation, in a safe and secure setting. So she is advocating behind the scenes to take things to a whole other level. So it's a really great recipe for success.
Absolutely.
Let's go to some comments, Grace.
Yeah. All right. So we've got one from Hank. Saying, good afternoon, Kelley from nearby Woodstock, Ontario. Awesome to hear about your program. I think it's great. It's important to spread awareness. As we were talking before, not every YMCA has a program like this. And so I guess if you're involved in your local YMCA chapter and you want to see something like this happen, start talking with local universities, reach out to Kelley, because this program, I think you're going into your second cohort. You've got, future cohorts planned. This is a great program. You're seeing excellent results. And I'm sure that a lot of people have a need of this program in other places throughout North America. So it is great to spread awareness. And then we have a comment from Rhiannon Gallagher. There are so many women burning out and leaving their STEM careers. Yes. Oh boy. I don't know if you've seen this, Kelley, kind of in your own program.
Yes, I think where I've heard about it the most is sort of in the skilled trades area. It can really feel sometimes like you're up against a brick wall, You do need the strength of a network. You do need peer support, and you need a healthy work environment. And the reality is not everybody gets that.
Yeah. And I think it's fair to say that not everyone is always going to get that. I think, we might all have experiences in our own careers where that wasn't available. But I think the good news is that we can find that in other sources. And that's not to say that everyone should stay in a job. Of course not. But it's not going to be, smooth seas at all times. But I think it is certainly worth examining. So what are some of the reasons and causes that that's happening, and working to address that, whether that's, again, being the only person of your identity in the room. So I know being the only can certainly weigh on people. I have friends that work in skilled trades where they are the only, and it's really tough. It does take a toll on their mental health. So they're very committed to the trade that they're in. They love it. But then they just need to find ways to, get that confidence and kind of fill up their tanks, so to speak, in other areas so that they can continue to show up to work and continue to blaze trails, not only for themselves, but for other women. So whether that's someone who's leaving that can then provide guidance, from a STEM career that can provide guidance to someone else, or someone who's just, sticking it out and blazing trails for other people. It's kind of we draw like a short straw either way. But it's certainly something to be aware of. I think Rihanna just posted another comment. I'll go ahead and post it here.
Mm-hmm.
So now we need to create programs to help the leaders learn how to create healthy and safe spaces for women and non-binary folks. Absolutely. If I can quote Erin Carroll from one of our previous audiences, everything comes down to leadership in so many ways. And I think as an organization, if you want to attract the best talent and you want to retain the best talent, both men and women, you need to be thinking these questions through and thinking how that you're providing for your workers, not only in the psychological safety space, but also in skills, learning opportunities, and a safe and healthy, positive culture, because culture will eat anything for breakfast.
That conversation with Erin, Kelley, I'll give you some context. She's a leader in manufacturing who had been talking to another leader who is a mentor about a specific situation, and their comment was, "Oh, I think it's a leadership problem."
It all comes back to leadership.
Well, just if I can sort of speak to that comment, that is one of the fingers identified as a way to create more equity and inclusion in the workplace and gender balance. It's not all up to the women to make it happen, like the women in the situation. The allies need to step in, management needs to step in, and they have a vested interest in this being successful, because it's a known fact that when you get 30% or higher of women in leadership in the company, it does generate a measurable improvement to the bottom line at the end of the day. So people who do care really need to become sort of more conscious and more aware of the little baby steps that contribute towards creating that healthy and safe space for everyone in the workplace.
Yes, thanks, Kelley, for closing that off. Now, some of the tips that we just talked about, we can actually discuss with young women and maybe bring it up to young women or just young people in general before they enter the workforce. Now, what advice or tips would you have for young women who are interested in pursuing manufacturing, specifically advanced manufacturing as a career?
Well, this is where being a generalist helps, because for all careers, and I've had a lot of contact. Once my email gets into the system with YWCA, I'm affiliated with the skilled trades. So I get emails of inquiry from all kinds of people, and I always give the most well-developed answer I can based on their own situation. But I really, really encourage people to be curious, put on their curious hat. work at learning everything they can, learn about the industry, learn from people who are in the job, ask a lot of questions, ask people how they did it. You do have to get past your fear to take the step out, or go somewhere where there are events and activities being held, so you can be in the space to hear other people speak. And I think that fear of asking, it holds a lot of people back. But you just have to be curious, and you only need simple questions like, hey, I'd like to learn about your job. Tell me, what's it like, a typical day on the job? How did you get started? How long did it take? What do you like best about it? Just any kind of question will show the person that you're interested in learning. And people love responding to questions like that. The hardest thing is just posing the question, but that really is the best place to start. For any career path, that's really number one. And I think when it comes to STEM and skilled trades, that's really a must-have. That way, you're actually going to be building your network as you go along. Because if people are telling their career journey to you, or any kind of conversation, they're going to be invested in your next steps. They're going to want to hear what happens next. Look for the things that you're passionate about when you hear other people speak. What are the components that sort of speak to your own inner goals, and be resilient, like push forward, ask people, find like-minded people, other people who are interested in the same things. I always try to connect people with a group. There are lots of little groups, women in skilled trades, Facebook groups, and all kinds of things. I'll always help to have someone hook up with others, because that will immediately make them stronger.
Excellent. I think that's top 10 tips right there.
For sure. Yeah.
Also, one thing, I don't know, Grace, go ahead. I know in Canada, a lot of the universities have student associations, often based on what area of study. And they tend to be really good at providing tips and helpful hints, as well as guest speakers and networking opportunities within the university association. And I know of some people who have benefited from participating in those over the years, to help them build a network, like you say, Kelley, even before they start working.
Oh, absolutely. I think, for anyone who's currently in college, to definitely take advantage of those opportunities. I can speak from my own experience that through, and in the US, it's definitely similar. I went to a very small college, but we still had those types of student associations that brought in speakers that were very industry specific. And I personally, reached out to some of those folks that I had met, in passing, but said like, hey, I'm in need of advice. I'm in need of guidance. And, it was definitely given, because the worst thing that they can say is, no, sorry, I don't have time. No harm, no foul. Like you shot your shot. It's hard to say that in past tense. But there's a lot of folks with really great experience that, I think if, again, flipping the script, think about how you would respond if someone is reaching out to you to ask for help. If a college student is reaching out for you to help, I would say yes. Like if I have advice that I can offer, absolutely. And so I think like people, especially women, like don't hesitate, like reach out and see what happens. Because those, individuals can be very helpful, and a living, breathing example of who that's benefited. So fully agree, Carol. That's a great point. So I think as we mentioned like a little bit earlier, kind of with Rhiannon's question, that being oftentimes the only in a space can be very taxing. What skills do women need to develop to work in a sector that has a small percentage of women? What can help set them up for success when they are the only in the room? And how can we find ways to like reach across the gender aisle, so to speak, and ask men for help and support? Because as you mentioned earlier, they are our allies. We need allies of all sorts, especially when women are the minority in a space. So what would you have to say to that?
Yes, well, I'm going to go back to what happens to participants in our program, this boost of confidence, this new ability to speak out for themselves. So I really think any kind of activity that's going to help with the confidence level is going to be a positive thing. Programs even like Toastmasters or volunteer activities, so you get used to interacting with different types of people, those can be resources for you. In fact, any time and any place that you're interacting with other people, you are creating opportunities for yourself, because those new people are going to know people who perhaps work in the field, have jobs that they'd be willing to talk about. In fact, I can guarantee they'd be willing to talk. All you have to do is ask the question. Just, hey, I'm trying to learn about advanced manufacturing. I'm curious about it. I've heard some things. I'm intrigued, you know. Who do you know who might be willing to give me 5 minutes and tell me about their day or tell me about their job? So this thing about the confidence building, Toastmasters, those are very precise skill building activities. So anything where you're going to be better with engaging with other people will be helpful. You can ask someone to be a mentor for you, possibly. This is just sort of, it can be an unofficial relationship, somebody who's going to be a sounding board, somebody that you can bring your questions to, somebody who might point to other people who can give you information that they don't have. It's like a backdoor helping person. Or what was that thing that you mentioned earlier, your own little board of directors in the background? They become a resource for you. So even finding a mentor, you can find a third-party mentor. Don't maybe expect to find the right person in your immediate circle, but ask around. Hey, I'm looking for someone who might be able to give me some guidance to go into, say, a manufacturing type career path. So anybody connected with that field is going to have more knowledge than you are at the starting point. So that person can take you so far, and just possibly have a casual mentoring relationship that might turn out to be a long-term relationship and may one day be a professional relationship. It's really hard to say. If you're asking somebody in the workplace, you can ask if there's anyone who has been a mentor in the past to someone else who's junior, who wants to maybe take some future steps and needs a bit of guidance on how to get there or what steps to look at. Because, you know, when we're in the situation, we lack information. So the people with the information, you just have to be willing to ask the question. I think you will find the help is there. What happens to women when they're in the minority, like you were talking about earlier, they lose their will, they lose their strength, and they lose their voice. So those are the things they need to gain. That stay curious, be willing to ask questions, find a safe person to practice with. But I've given some examples of really easy things to say. They don't have to be fancy or formal. Just, hey, I want to learn. You know, tell me about it. Tell me more about it. I'm curious. You know, really, that's all it takes.
You're absolutely right. And I think those questions really go beyond, you know, tell me about what you do, or like you have to be able to think of good questions. And you mentioned, you know, like sometimes when you are the only one of your particular identity in a room, it can be a little suffocating. And a lot of that burden then falls on you to kind of go out and make those connections and kind of bridge those gaps. And so I think we had a guest, was it 2 weeks ago now, Carol, Lauren Fitzpatrick, who is, you know, a Black woman in manufacturing. And again, was very often the only of her identity in the room. And she became a master in asking questions. And it's such an important skill. And you highlighted a lot of really great questions to ask that are specific, that really focus on that person's experience, because everyone loves to talk about themselves. So you have to stay curious. That's exactly right. And then, you know, ask questions, because people open up and you'll learn a lot of information. You can build those connections, as you mentioned, and get that understanding with someone. So asking good questions is a very good life skill. And yeah, one of the ones that you highlighted is like important to develop when you're in the minority. So the theme of our 2022 session is, our fall 2022 session is trailblazing, something that I brought up just briefly before. And we definitely think that you are a trailblazer in the work of like helping fill this career gap and helping prepare women for Industry 4.0 adoption and advanced manufacturing. So how would you consider yourself to be a trailblazer, and who would you consider to be someone that you looked up to as a trailblazer in your life and your travels?
Well, I love that question. I don't think of myself as a trailblazer, but when I was thinking about how I would answer that question, I thought, something that has come naturally to me is strangers will come to me with a question. I think I have this trusting face, and I think that makes me a trailblazer because I want to help people take the next step. And if I don't know what the next step is, I can always find, like at this point in my career, I can find the first few steps. But I can help them get further along than they would on their own. And so I think that's a bit about my role, what my role is with this particular job, with this particular program. It's something that has happened to me continually over my life. And I think that we're on this planet to help each other. And I think at the root of Trailblazer is there's going to be an element of helping someone else in anyone who's a trailblazer. So I love to be the one who's in the right place at the right time that I could be called upon. And I'm going to kick it into gear. I'm going to find a way to help them move forward wherever it is. Nothing makes me happier than that.
Yeah, I almost think of it as like a guidepost.
Yes.
Yeah, someone that's helping, because there's all sorts of things that you can encounter on the trail, and sometimes not. Again, you said post-secondary education, looking for ways. Women have taken, a lot of the folks that are coming into your cohort have taken one path, and you're helping them get onto the next segment of their trail. I really like that.
So, Kelley, who would in your life did you find? Yeah, it's an opportunity to share somebody of influence with you. So I don't want to miss that.
Well, okay. I don't quite know how to answer this, but this is a question that comes up now and then in your life. And I was a scouting leader for about 10 years, way back when I was a lot younger. And there was a senior scouting leader in our group, and I just admired this person. I wanted to be like them in their mannerisms and their knowledge. I would have to say that, when I talk about being in a position where people will come to you for help, maybe that's what I admired about this person. He would never say no. He would always find a way to be helpful. And maybe that kind of helped shape me and I didn't ever realize it until this moment. That may have had a more strong impact on me than I realized. Previously, the question was, think of someone who had been a mentor for you. And I always viewed, his name was Brian. He was always someone that I looked upon as a mentor role model to me. And there was nothing formal or informal about it. But we always had some collaboration with regards to the programs. And I really maybe took a few steps in being a little bit in operating in ways similar to what he was doing. That may have had more an impact than I realized.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kelley. And that does reiterate what you mentioned about informal mentors and their importance in our lives, and at different stages in our lives as they often come and go.
Yes.
Now, before we close for today, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about some of the other programs, the Uplift program while you have some attention of people. There might be some other people who you can help that are not necessarily in the advanced manufacturing program.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to talk more about that bigger picture that I mentioned earlier, the bigger picture of the Uplift program. So the 6 YWCAs that I spoke about, the Uplift program was a 3-year project. So start and end dates don't follow a pattern. All the Ys have a different schedule. But definitely the program offerings is what I'm going to talk about. Cybersecurity, program management being specifically the PMP certificate training, medical billing, data analytics, Lean Six Sigma, Green and Black Belt, AutoCAD, computer programming, and our own home programs, data science, with the partner University of Guelph, and the advanced manufacturing. So they all fit that model of the high-tech, secure employment, big demand, and gender imbalance. But it's quite a portfolio of programs, and we're really hoping that we can keep it going.
That's amazing. That's definitely a very broad offering. And so how can people get in touch with you and the Uplift program if they're looking for more information?
Yeah. Well, if I made it really easy, I'm going to offer myself as an initial contact. I can help them identify which YWCA, who would the contact person be, and at what state the program is in at the time of inquiry. So that's part of the previous question.
Yeah.
People can reach out to me. I will help them find an answer. And I get phone calls from people that have nothing to do with my program. I'm still going to always help them find the answer that they're looking for.
So what's the best?
Really help. So connect with her on LinkedIn.
Yes, Kelley, you can be found on LinkedIn. Is that the best way for people to reach you through following or connecting that way?
I'm happy to be contacted through LinkedIn. I can give my work email. My contact information can be found on the YWCA of Hamilton webpage under the Uplift program. But if it's easier to reach out through LinkedIn, I'm entirely responsive to that.
Great. We can also put the link for the Uplift program in the comments for this event, so people can.
Awesome.
Got it right here.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Grace, for doing that.
Thank you so much.
Now, before, usually when we're at the end of our conversation with someone, Kelley, we like to do just a round around the table to go over any of our final thoughts. And we'll give you the last word. But Grace, do you have any final thoughts or takeaways from our conversation today with Kelley?
Yeah, I think oftentimes as we continue to progress in our careers, we might start thinking it's like too late to change or too late to pivot. And I think that mentality can be quite limiting, especially considering the amount of opportunities that we have before us. So I'm just really excited to see programs like Uplift that exist, and and encourage anyone to seek out opportunities to continue building your skill set, opportunities to continue networking, to connect with people that are going to help you build the skills to be successful. If you're looking for a pivot, it's never too late. And I think we oftentimes buy into a very linear idea of life that is continually upwards and ever progressing. It's very much not that way. So I just appreciate always learning about different ways that people like you, Kelley, are helping, specifically in this case, women kind of take on those transitions with a lot of confidence and with a lot of support. So, Carol, over to you.
Thanks, Grace. I really liked the examples you gave from your cohorts, Kelley, your success stories. I think they're really inspirational and really talk to the tools that you're offering people to really make changes themselves. And I think that's where a lot of your success and what makes your program so unique. So I love listening to those success stories, and that's my takeaway for today. So we'll leave it with you.
Well, that's very generous. You're giving me the last word. I think, the tip of the day, the stay curious, because, there's a little voice inside our head that says, it's too late. I'm too old. I can't do it. I've got this problem. I've got that problem. And you need to look beyond. You have to shut that little voice up. You have to look beyond and find somebody, a friendly person, to just start asking questions to. And I can offer to be that person because I'll help you find the next step, wherever that may be. And there are a lot of people out there, people close to you, who would do the same for you. Just find them when you're comfortable with taking that first baby step. Because really there are great opportunities. There's a lot of change. There are people needed in many fields, and advanced manufacturing has a very big demand right now. So yeah, just stay open-minded and start asking questions.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. That's a perfect ending. Before we close, thanks very much, Kelley, for your time, and we appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your experience. I think that's where the value is in our conversations, and your continued interest in helping women in leadership and learning, developing, reskilling is valuable. And we'd like to thank everyone in the audience today and those who comment and participated. If you like conversations like this that we had today, look out for our future LinkedIn live shows. We encourage you to follow the Industry 4.0 Club so you can have continued notifications so you don't miss out. And thanks, and we wish you all a very good rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.